Thank you, Design Indaba, for having me here. It's amazing. It's been an amazing week so far, and incredible to meet all the people I've met in the past few days. I guess we're all sort of using this opportunity to think about what design means to us in a way. This statement is quite a simple thing. We all know design responds to context in some way or another, and coming from an architectural background, for me that's often the city that you're building in, or the local technical parameters, materials, and so on. Design also works within the context of people's minds. So the memories they have, where they've come from, where they're going to, and sort of, I guess, in some way, as a designer, you've got that context yourself, and you're trying to impart that to your projects. So to illustrate this in the kind of direct contextual approach, this is a project we did as students sort of 7 years ago. I think Marcus Fairs, who's sitting there, was the first person to publish it in Icon magazine. This is a favela in Brazil, in Recife. This is a detail of a connection which was made through negotiation with local people in the favela, because we found that public space needed shade in order to be usable. So over a 1 week period of time, we worked with a $50 budget and with the local community, and made a small project, which is just to provide shade at the entrance to this favela. Favela is a shantytown, probably very similar to those that you'd find here in South Africa and elsewhere in the world. What's quite interesting, the material is a local material. It's spandex. It's used in every Brazilian swimsuit you can imagine. So what's the context of where my studio is in London? This is the kind of typical poster that you'll find in a window. And 2 years ago, no, when was it? 2010, I was asked by the Design Museum to come up with a kind of contextual project about London. And I chose to find raw materials in London itself. And what did I see on my way to the studio? This is one thing I saw, and this is another thing, Gypsophila bush, which is baby's breath. It's a really common garden plant. If you get married and you want to have a bouquet, this is probably what you have in it. And I was sort of wondering, what could you make from this? What object could you have, let's say, could exist in the garden, but also you could bring into your home? And what would that mean if you did that? And the Design Museum in London has a kind of particular mandate, which is to, of course, to spread the understanding of design to the local community in London, and I guess projects which help question things in people. What is design? What could it be? Are really important. So this is what came out of this project. And it's a series of furniture which is made actually by sort of packing and coalescing this material, the collected material, and then making it rigid with sort of bioresins. And it was quite a technical process. But I'm not showing you pictures I have lots and lots of pictures of the process of me and the full kit of spray gun and whatever toxic stuff, not toxic, it's non-toxic things. But somehow it's not about that. It's about these objects and how people relate to them. You can just about use the table. It's not really about the object's usability. It's about the kind of mental space it occupies, let's say. More of a talking point. But interestingly enough, the boss of MUJI, which is this brilliant industrial design product retailer in Japan, saw this, and they invited it to become part of something, part of a collection or collaboration. So there's a company called IDE who MUJI own now, who are a really brilliant historic design company, and you can buy these chairs from them, and some lights and some other things. And I did say, shouldn't we try and change them a little bit so people can use them? It's like, no, that's fine. We'll just have that. So they're quite expensive, though. So, okay, so this is a project which I sort of started in 2011. It's kind of going on in different iterations. And it started with the question, like, what is the simplest form of shelter that exists, or the kind of the architectural, let's say, archetype? And the roof is the basic form, for me at least, and how a cloud shades us from the sun is once kind of incredibly simple and arises from really complex effects. There's a sort of beauty in that, and also familiarity for all of us. So I sort of just wondered whether architecture could be as simple as that, and at the same time playing with my kids in the bath, with bubble bath, I started playing with that. I thought, maybe this stuff, it's a kind of classic architect thing. Oh, this is, I think I found something. It's bubble bath can be architecture. So how do these fit together? Well, if you combine bubble bath with helium gas, you can create clouds, right? And that's my daughter there, taking shade from a 500-watt halogen lamp in the studio. For me, this is sort of this idea that, why can't the future of architecture be lightweight and simple and intuitive in a way, like a cloud? So this is at Design Miami, Design Miami is in Basel half the year, and it's in Miami the other half the year, so it's at Design Miami Basel. And it's a sort of cloud machine. There's something sort of strangely biological about it, if you know what I mean, but upside down, which people, they're not actors, everyone was sort of just mesmerized by it, except this lady. So I quite like the idea of creating a situation or creating a kind of environment, and then what it becomes is made by the people who experience it. Let's move on. Okay, so last year I collaborated with another architect, Pernilla Orsted, and we made a very big version of this. So we're interested in how it can relate to the environment, how those kind of clouds might relate to another piece of architecture. why. So again, in London, but okay, on the left you see Coca Cola's drink stand at the Berlin. I think no, it's 1926, which is it's an archive photo. So this is a project which I spent most of 2011 and 12 occupied with, and Coca Cola. Kind of the oldest sponsor of the Olympic Games, and they had sort of realized, as had sort of the London Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, that architecture was a way of telling stories, and pavilions and so on had become, you know, a really, I guess, say, kind of acceptable way of a more acceptable way of telling those stories than, say, slapping big logos on things. And this is sort of a wonderful thing for architecture at the moment, because people are, because of the way that the media are kind of promoting it and so on, people are really receptive to it. So, you know, historically is what they did. This is what they did at the Beijing Olympics, and this time they were looking for kind of someone from the UK to, I guess, tell their story and to create something to showcase their brand at the Olympics. I guess the whole of, they went through the UK with the Architecture Foundation, and they tried to identify a sort of emerging studio who they would invite, emerging studios, to compete, to design this, and my studio won this. And the project is, you can't see it here, but it's based around quite a simple idea. It takes on this, tries to combine music and architecture in one experience. So we took the idea of a kind of a piece of music, and Coca Cola, we knew, was working on some sort of piece of music with Mark Ronson, the producer, that year, particularly for the Olympic Games. And Mark was going to go around and record sports sounds from athletes around the world, and then work those into a song. So we said, right, if that song, whatever it is a line, and that has a certain length, what would happen if we kind of rolled that line into a spiral, and at the bottom is a queue, and at the top is a view of the Olympic Park. And as they walk around that spiral, they experience this piece of music, but also they experience a kind of, maybe we could let them interact with that piece of music. So each of those pieces, the idea was there'd be sort of keys in a musical instrument, and by walking through the building, let's say the outside of the building, you would make that piece of music come to life. So this is my proof of concept. So on the right-hand side is a material called ETFE. It's like an inflatable, basically, which is used for roofs everywhere in the world. The Eden Project is made from this material. And that little thing that was being pushed up against it is called an exciter speaker. So the idea that a piece of architecture, let's say, can become a musical instrument was what we wanted to very literally do.
So it's a table tennis action on its back. One hit.
So after a year of intense work, what we ended up with was 240 of these things, which would then be connected together to make that structure. So we were able to take all of Mark Ronson's sounds, and make them into this experience. There it is on the Olympic Park. There are no Coke logos on this building. It's the bright red, which is why you might not have noticed it. But it's the first time in Coke's history that they've agreed to promote themselves without their logo on a building. And what was very nice is it did become part of the context of the park. It almost, although this thing is quite weird, almost alien-like, it just became part of the backdrop, which was really nice, actually. So they're all watching the 100-meter finals, I think, and couldn't care less about the same. But 200,000 people went through this structure during the games, which is sort of about, you'd imagine, about 8 years life of a building, normally, something like that. So it's an incredibly intense way of working and a way of creating a project.
Polymer can be made where the condensation reaction is happening. So then I'm going to reach in here, and where the interface is, I'm going to pull out some nylon. So here we go.
This is how you make nylon.
See how much nylon we can pull out of this thing. There's a meter or so. 2.
It's a nice little experiment, but sometimes you come up with ideas and they don't go anywhere. But they're little things that you keep. No one's seen this before, but so. Okay, so final sort of project I wanted to show is quite recent, and it was done for Swarovski, the crystal manufacturer, and this was shown in Design Miami in 2012 December. What you're looking at are ice crystals. Each of those is about 0.1 millimeters in size. And when Swarovski sort of asked me to do an installation for them at Design Miami, I said, first of all, I showed them this image. Crystals, of course, there's a similarity there, very much smaller. And I showed them this image, which is what happens when those crystals are in the sky. So this is called an ice halo. And those kind of, what you see on the center is the sun, and the 4 points are actually, in a way, copies of the sun. They're called parhelia. And the ice crystals, when they're in the sky, turn the whole sky into a lens, basically. So it's similar to a rainbow, but it doesn't refract the light into various colors. It does things with geometry. And I was thinking, what would happen if you could make architecture like this? What would happen if, because this is about the scale of a building, a large building, why doesn't architecture do things like this? Why can't we do things like that? So, and I'm sort of obsessed with this sort of idea, why can't we do this with something? So we will get there eventually, but we have to do it in small steps. So the first thing I did is I went to Manchester University and badgered some of the scientists there to allow me to play around at minus 30 degrees, which is this. And we made the world's first indoor ice halo. This was more to sort of understand what it felt like to be there, because we couldn't afford to travel to the North Pole or Alaska to see the halos, and to understanding the mechanics of it. But the sort of the luminous moment you experience and the intimacy you have with the light source is something I can't really explain, but it's similar to how you feel when you're out there sunbathing and you're looking through your eyelashes, and you feel connected with the sun as though it's yours, as though it's really close to you, but it's very far away. And this is something paradoxical but beautiful, and it's sort of inherent in the phototropic nature of people, right? So I literally went through the whole archive of Swarovski trying to find materials that could do this, because my hunch was that if you had crystals arranged in the right way, they would be able to replicate the halos. Found this, and we made a pavilion which had about 1.5 million crystals in it, and also an oculus, sort of, because it was actually shown within an exhibition space. We made a hole in the roof of the exhibition space, which they weren't that happy about, but we did that. And so throughout the day, this structure was sort of subjected to daylight, and you get these sort of wonderful moments where the kind of Miami crowd come in, and they have to duck down and get up into the structure to get inside it. So there's also this kind of threshold moment, which I wanted to. I'm aware that I haven't shown you the whole building yet. We'll get there in a second. But it's a sort of moment of disarming, so you can kind of experience the light in a way, a kind of childlike way. That's the thing. It's probably better to show it moving, which, this is interesting. This is the single LED light source that's inside, which creates that. So there's something very nice about multiplication from, this is probably 2 watts or something that's using, it's nothing. This is the opening night. It's my iPhone video. But so as you walk around this structure, the halo appears to follow you around, and it's different for everyone who sees it. So I had this argument with someone about whether this was bling or not, and I'm not sure. It doesn't look very blingy here, but it was intended not to be blingy. It was meant to be kind of pure and about light. This is sort of a time lapse showing the sort of day's occupation. It's something quite nice. You don't normally get to see kind of crystals in daylight. It's not a normal combination, particularly in previous collaborations that they've done. So this was sort of what I felt I could give to the process, and also to bring it up a scale into a space that you can occupy. That was a photo shoot. That was that. I hope you're counting the people, because there's going to be a test afterwards. Yes, as the sort of sunlight goes, the character of the place changes completely. Okay. What next? We've got quite a lot of interesting projects sort of coming up next year, or this year and next year. One of them, which is slightly bizarre, but I think it's quite interesting, is the idea of moving a city around. We got kind of asked to come up with ideas of a 6-month sort of roadshow, and although I've been wanting to do really permanent things, I can't. When people offer these kind of things, I sort of get really excited about movement and so on. So this is we collected together these images of how things get moved, and this is in the Ukraine, where you can build something somewhere and then move it. So what we're trying to do is take a town across a journey of several thousand miles, and in each place it goes to, people come and stay in that town. So it's a kind of reverse tourism. But yeah, you'll hear more about that soon. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to show you today. But thank you very much for having me.